Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for the webinar today. My name is Molly and I'm on the customer success team at Tailwind. To start out, if you want to go ahead and leave me a little message in the chat and just tell me whether or not you can hear me okay, that would be great. And otherwise, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how using Tailwind for Pinterest saves you time and energy, helps you source content, and also helps you grow. So one of the first things I want to show you is how to use the Tailwind browser extension. We have an extension for Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. And basically the extension is going to make it really easy for you to schedule content from all over the web. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. Alright, so we'll hop over here to Tailwind, and once I visit my drafts, Tailwind will auto-detect what browser you're in. So I'm using Chrome, so Chrome extension will appear right here, and I'll just click on that. And I can easily install the extension that way, and then you can find it up here in the top right hand corner, and now the extension is installed. So how do you use it? So if I head over to the Tailwind blog, and let's say I want to schedule this blog post to my Pinterest account, I can hover over one of the images in the post and I'll see a little button that says schedule. So I'm going to click that. And this is going to bring up the option for me to change the description and also to choose a board I want to schedule to. So I'll choose my board and then add that to my queue. And so that pin has been scheduled to go out. So if I close out of this and head back to Tailwind, and then I can see that that pin has been scheduled. But let's say I'd like to schedule a bunch of pins at once. So how a lot of Tailwind members use our extension is to bulk schedule other people's content via Pinterest. So what I can do, I'm in Pinterest here, I can actually click on the Tailwind extension, and this is going to give me the option to select a bunch of pins at once that I want to schedule to my board. So let me just select a few, and then I'm going to click Go Schedule. And basically what this is going to do is allow you to either type in a board to schedule all of these pins to, if they're all related to the same thing, or if you want to schedule them all to the same board, or you can go through and change the description if you'd like, or add a different board to each pin and then just hit add to queue. So this is a really easy way for you to save time by bulk scheduling. Something else I want to point out is that Tailwind Smart Schedule is actually optimized for you specifically. So the time slots that are in your Smart Schedule aren't just randomly selected or randomly generated. These are actually based on data. So your time slots are based on a number of different things. So trends from topics that you post a lot about, when your audience is most engaged, Pinterest trends, and then also Instagram trends in general when you're using Instagram, but for right now we're just talking about Pinterest. But the same goes for if you use Tailwind for Instagram, the Smart Schedule is also based on Instagram trends. And then finally, insights on repins, traffic, and conversions from literally billions of data points. So the Smart Schedule you have with Tailwind isn't just a selection of random times. These are actually based on data. So your posts are going out at the best times possible for you to actually get engagement. So once you're in your actual Smart Schedule, which I'll get to in just a second, I want to go over the differences in the types of time slots that you'll see. So basically there's a dark green, a light green, gray, and then a time slot that's surrounded with a dotted green line. So if the time slot is green at all, this means it's optimized. So it's based on Pinterest data, the ones I just talked about. So dark green is going to indicate that this was generated when you generated your Smart Schedule. Light green means that the time slot was once a recommended time slot, which I'll get to in just a second. If it's a gray time slot, this is custom, which means that you manually added this. And since it's manually added, that means it's not optimized. But you still have the option of adding manual time slots whenever you like. And then if it's in a dotted green line, that means that this is a recommended time slot. Recommended time slots are not yet in your schedule, but they are optimized. So basically, these are just our suggestions. So if you'd like to add another optimized time slot to your schedule, you just click on the dotted green time slot, and then that's going to turn into the lighter green time slot, and it's actually going to be a part of your schedule. So this is what your Smart Schedule looks like in the Tailwind dashboard. Your schedule repeats weekly. And something we get asked a lot is, how often should I be pinning? How many pins should I schedule per day? And to be honest, there's no magic formula. So something different will work for everyone. Across all Tailwind members, the average is about 25 pins a day, but there are people who see success pinning much fewer pins than that, and there are people who see success pinning a lot more than that. So we always recommend trying different things, experimenting with your account, and then checking in on your analytics to see what's performing best for you or what is your audience enjoying the most. And so a big part of that is actually changing up your smart schedule periodically. So if you decide that you'd like to either pin more or pin less, you can go ahead and go into your schedule manager, and you can get there by, in the left navigation bar, going to publish and then your schedule. And once they're there, you'll see the option to generate a new smart schedule. So if you click on that, and let's say I want to post 10 times a day now. So I can just select 10 and then click Generate New Schedule. And voila! So now I have a new smart schedule. So the next step in doing this is to go to your scheduled pins. So basically any pins that you already had scheduled are going to remain exactly where they are. So they're going to be custom time slots now that are outside of your newly generated time slot schedule. So because of this, your schedule might look a little wonky at first because, like I said, these are all custom time slots now and they're not in the new time slots that you just generated. But this is a really quick fix, so as long as all of these are unlocked, you can just use our fill-in time slot feature. So if you just click on these 3 vertical dots and click on fill-in time slots and confirm that that's what you want to do, then what's going to happen is those are going to be pushed into your time slots. And then another feature that I want to point out, once you've got everything in line, let's say you want to change things up a bit, you can actually shuffle your queue. This is especially useful if you are pinning the same thing to multiple boards, which I'll get into detail in a little bit, or if you just want to change up the schedule of your queue in a random way. You just click Shuffle Queue right here, and this is going to shuffle any pins that aren't locked. So if your pins are locked, they'll remain exactly where they are, and only unlocked pins will actually be shuffled. So I'll just shuffle the queue, and there you go. Everything is randomized. Alright, so thanks for staying with me so far. So I have walked you through how Tailwind both helps you source content and saves you time and energy with our browser extension. And I'm going to further explain how Tailwind saves you time and energy using board lists. So this is a feature that's particularly helpful if you have lots of boards that you end up pinning the same content to. So let's say you have 5 or 6 DIY boards or 5 or 6 boards that are related to your work. Board lists are a great way for you to easily schedule content to multiple boards at once. So let's just jump right in and I'll show you how to use board lists. Alright, so now we're back in our Tailwind dashboard. To get to your board list, go over here in the left navigation bar, click on Publish, and then click on Board Lists. And here's where you can add a new board list or where you can find previously created board lists. So I've already got a new board list started. So for our purposes, let's just call it New Work Board List. Really creative of me. So let's just say for this example, I want to create a board list that's all related to my work and my career. So I'll find all the boards I have related to work. So I'll just do a few for this example, but feel free to do many. Alright, so I've just created a new board list, and again, this is the page where you can also find all of the other board lists you've created. So let's go in and actually schedule to a board list. So I'm just going to go up to my drafts. I have something already saved. So I'm going to go to my draft and click in the box that says type a board name. This is where, if you're not using a board list, you would just add a board. And all of my board lists are here at the top, and there's a little orange icon with a star by it, and the star, right next to the star, includes the number of boards that are in this board list. So the one I just created is called New Work Board List. And as you can see, this is automatically going to add 3 boards to this pen, and then I can go ahead and add those to my queue. And it's just that easy. All right. So in cases like this, where you're scheduling a pin to multiple boards, maybe a lot more than 3, like in my example, you might be wondering, how can I spread those pins over time so that I'm not flooding my feed with the same pin going to a different board a bunch of different times in a row? So this is where interval scheduling comes into play. And my colleague has actually made a really helpful video to show you exactly how to schedule using an interval. But basically, this is a really easy way for you to get content, the same piece of content, the same pin that's going out to multiple boards, spread out over a set period of time that you choose. So I'm just going to go ahead and play that video for you. It's really going to show you the process, and it's really simple.
For this example, I found these great pins that will be perfect for several of my boards, and I want them to be posted across a period of time. So I'm going to schedule them using the interval feature. To get started, add more than 2 boards to a pin and select Use Interval. It is important to know that there are 3 different ways you can use the interval feature. You have the open time slots, exact, and optimized interval options. So let's start by using your open time slots. Using this option, your pins will be scheduled right into the open time slots that are in your schedule. The Schedule First Pin at time will show you when the first pin will be scheduled to post, and you will notice that it is taking the first available time slot. This lets you know that when you schedule your pins, the first pin will be inserted into your schedule directly in that first available time. Next, I'm going to change the interval length to schedule my pins every 4 days. I do this by clicking and dragging the bar here, or simply typing in 4D. After looking at the scheduled preview here to confirm that my pins will post when I expect them to, I can click Set Interval and Schedule. And now we're good. I can now look at my scheduled pins in the queue and see that they are scheduled into my time slots exactly like I expected them to be. Notice that there is a lock added to my interval pins. Well, interval pins are locked automatically, which tells me that these pins will not be affected by the shuffle feature. If you would like your pins to shuffle, you can simply unlock it by clicking the lock on the bottom of the pin. Okay, but what if I want to schedule my pins at a specific time throughout my schedule? Well, the exact option is designed just for that. Using the exact interval option, you can schedule pins at exact times you choose, regardless of a time slot being available. An additional benefit of the exact intervals option is I can use this to schedule interval pins into my schedule even if it is already full. So you might be asking what I mean by this. Well, for example, I have my entire month scheduled, but I just remembered that I forgot to schedule a pin to coincide with a new blog post that is being published later this week. If I use the time slot option, these pins will be scheduled into my available time slots, but that's in weeks and after the blog post will be published. So in this case, I can use the exact interval option to choose a specific start time and interval to schedule my pins, regardless of my time slots. And again, I'm going to add 2 or more boards and then select Use Interval. And then I can select the exact option. The second draft pin took notice that I already used that first time slot, so now this draft scheduled first pin at time is going to be the next available time slot. But because I want this pin to be published at a specific start time, I can click into that Schedule First Pin at Time section and then change the start time to whatever I choose. The interval time was saved based on the last interval I set, so I can keep or change this as well. I'm going to change this so the interval is 1 day, and this means that every day I will have 1 pin that's released at the same time, as you can see here in the schedule preview. Now I can set the interval and add it to my schedule. Looking at my scheduled pins, I can see the pins were scheduled at exact times, marked by a lock and a clock. And as we know, the lock will be assigned to all interval pins, but the clock will be assigned to any pin that was scheduled outside of a time slot to signify this pin was scheduled outside of your reoccurring schedule. We call these manual pins. Alright, now what if you're wondering, well hey, what if I need to schedule my pins at an earlier time than using my time slot option, but I still want to use those optimized times that Tailwind suggests? Well, this is where the Optimize Interval option comes into play. The Optimize Interval option will schedule your pins to the most optimal posting times without using your existing time slots. We'll do this by using your existing time slots as guide markers for when your interval pins should be scheduled, allowing the pin to be based around the optimal posting times, while making sure to always abide by the minimum interval time you set. After I edit and send my pins to my queue, I can see them here, marked with a lock and a clock as well. And there you have it. You now know how to master the interval feature.
Okay, awesome. So let's try that example I did earlier again, and this time we'll use interval pinning. So I will click on my new board list, and I should note that you don't have to use a board list to interval pin. As long as there's more than one board that you add to a pin, you'll be able to use an interval. So we're going to click use interval, and I am going to choose open time slots, and I want one day to be in between each time this pin gets published. So let's set the interval, hit schedule, and there you go. The pin is scheduled with a minimum of 1 day in between each time it's published. So that's how you use our interval pinning feature to spread your pins out over time. Okay, thank you so much for staying with me this far. I know it's a lot of information at once, so I do just want to remind you that you can use the chat box to reach out to us to ask questions. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Tailwind mobile app. Tailwind actually does have an iOS app, so if you have an iPad or an iPhone, just visit your app store and search for Tailwind, and you can find the app there. So I'm just going to do a very quick broad overview of how you can use the Tailwind app to schedule. Alright, so I'm just going to open up the Tailwind app, and right now I don't have any drafts, but as you can see the toolbar across the bottom, you can click on your drafts, you can view your calendar, so here are those interval pins that I just scheduled earlier. Alright, so the most common way people use the Tailwind app, I would say, is to schedule straight from the Pinterest mobile app. So let's just say you're scrolling through the Pinterest app and you see something you'd like to schedule to Tailwind. So I will just open up this pin, and I'm going to click on this little share icon right here. Click share, and then I'm going to scroll over. These are all the apps that you can share to across the bottom here. I'm just going to click more apps and then select Tailwind. Alright, so here I can change the description of the pin if I want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just add this to a board. And then click schedule. And then once I've done that, we can go back into the Tailwind app, open up the schedule again, pull down to refresh, and there you have it. There is the pin I just scheduled using the mobile app. And then another way you can schedule on your mobile device is in Safari. So I'm in Safari right now on the Tailwind blog. Across the bottom of your phone screen, you'll see another share icon. I'm just going to tap on that, and then I can easily click Tailwind, and I can select the actual image on the page that I want to schedule. And then again, I can choose the board I'd like to schedule to. And there you have it. Check on it in Tailwind. And there it is. Okay, so I've taught you how Tailwind can help you source content, how it saves you time and energy, and now I want to talk a little bit about how Tailwind can help you grow. So I mentioned earlier that one of the things I highly recommend is to change up your strategy periodically and check in on your analytics. So your analytics within Tailwind are going to tell you how your content is performing, and it's going to give you an idea of how to tweak your strategy in order to grow, in order to see growth and traffic to your website. So I'm going to walk you through a few reports on Tailwind that will help give you this idea and help you get a better understanding of how you're actually performing on Pinterest. Okay, so the first report I'm going to show you is your profile performance. So you can find your profile performance page by just going over here to the left navigation, clicking on track your brand page, and then profile performance. And the profile performance is essentially just a very broad overview of how your brand is performing on Pinterest. So as you can see, we show you some numbers across the top here, your followers, your pins, your repins, and your comments. And we also show you how this number has changed in the past week. So on my account, I have 434 followers, and I've gained 2 followers in the past week. And not only do we show you your numbers, but we're also going to show that in a visual form, this graph underneath. So as you click through, the graph will change to the metric that you're actually looking at. And so not only do we give you those metrics, but we also give you 3 additional scores that we kind of view as success metrics in terms of how you're performing on Pinterest. So the first one is the virality score. And very broadly, this means how viral your pins are. So this is on average repins per pin. So basically what my number is showing right here is 13.7. So this pretty much means every time I pin, on average, I'm getting 13.7 repins. And this is really important because, as you know, every time someone repins your content, that's them clicking through and actually sharing that content to their followers. So repins are a really important metric to track. And we also show you how this compares to your 30-day average. So I'm actually at a 30-day high right now, so I'm doing pretty well this month. So 13.7 is my virality score. And so the next metric that we track is your engagement score. And this is essentially repins per pin per follower. So to break that down a bit, this is basically the virality score per 1,000 followers. So how many followers out of 1,000 will repin a pin every time you post to Pinterest? This tells you essentially how relevant your content is to your audience and how engaged they are with your content. So as you improve your content and check on your analytics to see what's performing well, how relevant your content is with your audience, this number will continue to improve. And again, just like with virality score, we give you a comparison to your 30-day average. And the third metric we have here is your engagement rate. So this is basically the percentage of pins you have total that have at least 1 repin. So essentially the rate of your pins that actually have engagement on them. And this is another great way to determine the relevance of your pins to your audience. As your accounts mature, you'll definitely see this number go up. This rate is great for new Pinterest accounts because it's a great way for you to track the engagement at a very broad level. Something that we tend to suggest as a goal would be somewhere between 80% and 100%. That would be a very healthy engagement rate. So yeah, so now that we have our profile performance page all dissected. This is, like I said, a great broad overview of your analytics, but the next couple of reports I'm going to get into will show you how to sort of further dissect those. And so in order to do that, the next report I'm going to show you is your board insights. And this is right under profile performance under the header track your brand page. So we'll just head here. And basically, board insights is the same data that's on your profile performance, but it's broken down by board. And boards individually are really important. Obviously, your general Pinterest analytics are really important as well, but each board can very easily be taken as its own marketing channel. So it's possible that these boards will all have different followers and that you'll have a different strategy possibly for each board. And board insights makes it really easy for you to look at all of this data by board and determine your strategy from there. So to decide what boards are doing really well, and then what boards might need some more TLC than others. So you can actually choose up here how you want to look at these boards. So let's say I just want to see pins. So which boards have the most pins? So I can see here it's going to order them by which boards have the most pins. You can do the same thing with followers, the same thing with repins. So basically this page is customizable in terms of how you want to view this data. And something that's particularly helpful about board insights is that as you continue to grow your Pinterest account and add more and more boards, this is going to help you determine where to spend most of your time. So, and that could mean, like I said, either focusing in on boards that are doing really well or boards that are doing so well that maybe you want to put those to the side and focus more of your time on building up boards that aren't performing as well. Something else to note is that this data is going to change, so you might only be interested in the information that's most recent, so which boards are doing best right now. And that's really where this last 7 days column comes into play. So I only want to see this information for the last 7 days. So I'm going to sort by repins for the last 7 days. And here I can get a really good idea of what boards are getting the most engagement this past week. So not only am I looking at this data in the order I want to, but it's also super recent, super relevant to right now. And then final thing on this is that if you only want to view regular boards, you can do that. If you only want to view secret boards, you can do that. You can filter also by group boards. So if you only want to see the metrics for the group boards that you're in, you can use this right here to do that. Alright, so we're going to move on to another report, and that is your pin inspector. So if you go over here to the menu, click on optimize content, and then click on pin inspector. And the pin inspector is exactly what it sounds like. So this is a way for you to look at individual pins and see exactly how they're performing. So on the Plus plan, which is our plan for small to medium businesses and bloggers, you have access to your most recent 5,000 pins. So your most recent 5,000 pins will show up in the pin inspector. And similar to how Board Insights was set up, you can filter by various things here. So by repins, comments, by the date pin. So if I click on this, I can actually just see my most recent pins. Here's the things that I actually scheduled earlier today. And so from here, if I see something that's performing really well, so actually let's say I want to search by repins. So this is something that I repinned that has gotten the most engagement on my Pinterest profile. I can actually reschedule this pin really easily and post it to whatever board I want, schedule it, and then that's been added to my queue. So that's a really easy way to reschedule content that's performing well. And the other thing that's really great about the pin inspector is that you can actually select a time period. So my account isn't a great example for this, but let's say you pin a lot of holiday content or maybe back to school content or anything that's relevant to a specific time of year. Let's say the holiday season's coming up and you want to find out what content of yours performed best or maybe didn't perform so well last year around the holiday seasons. You can actually go back and go to that specific time of year and look at only pins from then. So that's another thing about the pin inspector that makes it really helpful. You can also search for keywords. So let's say you have a general idea of a pin that you're looking for. I'll just search for Tailwind. This is going to bring up all of my pins related to Tailwind. And then within this search, you can also filter by date pinned or comments or repins, and this is another great way to quickly reschedule content. And so the pin inspector is a really detailed way to look at your content and how it's performing and get an idea of how relevant it is to your audience. So this is a great way to see, one, what's performing well and sort of analyze, okay, what exactly about this content made it perform so well. And then this is also a great way to look at what could be improved. So what's different between the content that I'm posting that's working really well for me and getting great engagement, great numbers, and that's not getting such great numbers. So what's the difference between those two things? And then how can you tweak your strategy to get those lower numbers up as well? All right, for the last report I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to hop over to the Tailwind account, and this is Monitor Your Domain. You can find this report in the left-hand menu by just clicking Monitor Your Domain and then clicking Insights. So basically, this report is going to show you how much traffic you're driving to your site from Pinterest. So the ultimate goal in creating a Pinterest marketing strategy and investing something like Tailwind is to get traffic from Pinterest to your website. So similar to profile performance, we've got three metrics up here. So a really important one to look at is pins. So this number is for the last 7 days. So basically this is showing that in the last 7 days, 667 pins have been posted to Pinterest that link back to tailwindapp.com. And so you might wonder where these are coming from. It's a combination of three things. These are pins that you yourself have pinned to Pinterest, people repinning that on Pinterest, and then finally people going directly to your website and using the pin it button to pin from there. And so the other most important metric on this page is visits. So this is essentially how many visits we're getting back to our website from Pinterest. And this is really where you can see the value in spending time and resources developing a Pinterest marketing strategy. So this is how you're getting people back to your website, how you're getting traffic on your website, how you're getting engagement. And so as sort of a bonus, over here on the right hand side, we're going to show you trending images for the last week. And these are just images, pins that have the most engagement. And the larger the image in this report, that means the more engagement it has. And so if in your dashboard, if you're not seeing a number for visits, it's probably because you haven't synced Google Analytics with Tailwind. Highly recommend doing that, and you'll know you haven't if there's a little red triangle, like a little warning sign right next to referral traffic. So if you just go ahead and click on that, you'll be prompted to sync your Google Analytics. It'll take a couple of days to pull all of that data, but it's totally worth it. And then once we have that information, we'll be able to calculate your visits for you. So if you want to hop over here to referral traffic and just point out one other thing. If you're e-commerce or if you're selling something on your website, this is also a great way to see revenue. So getting success metrics in not only traffic and visits and repins, but also seeing an actual dollar amount for return. So is it worth investing in Pinterest, and what am I actually getting out of spending time on my Pinterest marketing strategy? So definitely recommend syncing up Google Analytics. It's a great place for you to see exactly how, not only how you're performing, but again, why it's worth it for to develop a strategy on Pinterest and to keep up with it. All right, so now that we've gone through all those reports, I just want to do a quick recap because I know it's a lot of information. So I'm going to start off with profile performance, where we started. So profile performance, again, is a great way to essentially see a very broad overview of how you're performing on Pinterest. And now I'm in Tailwind's account, so these numbers are a little bit more impressive than my personal account. And then the next step into that is visiting your board insights. And again, this is essentially profile performance broken down by board, and viewing each board as its own marketing channel and determining your strategy based on the numbers that you're seeing here. And then you can expand on board insights by going even more in depth with the Pin Inspector, where you can look at individual pieces of content and compare them with each other to see the difference between your content that's performing well, the content that's not performing so well, and tweak your strategy based on that. Again, this is where you can also filter by date, so you can go back to a specific time of year, last year or the year before. You can also filter by board to see individual pins there. You can search for things, so that's the Pin Inspector. And then finally, we have the Monitor Your Domain report. So again, this is where you're really going to see your return on investment for spending time and resources in your Pinterest marketing strategy. So how many pins are actually linking back to your account, how many visits you're getting from those pins, and then if you're an e-commerce blogger or you have an e-commerce store, it's also a way for you to sync your Google Analytics and see all in one dashboard exactly, a specific dollar amount of return that you're actually getting from Pinterest. All right. All right, everyone. So that's it for me. That's all I have. I want to thank you again for joining us today. I really hope you found the webinar helpful. You can always reach us at help@tailwindapp.com, or you can reach us in your Tailwind dashboard. Just click on the little question mark in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can also reach out to me personally at Mollie, that's MOLLIE, @tailwindapp.com. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope to talk to you all soon. Bye.